Hey, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Mind Your Mental podcast. We're doing another mailbag episode. This one hit me right in the feels, and I also think it provides me an opportunity to share something that most people may not know about me because, I don't know, I don't think I share it ridiculously often. So let's get right into it. Oh, before we jump right into it, let me share if you are interested in leaving a voicemail and having one of your questions answered on the mailbag episodes. You can call 215-650-3962. That's 215-650-3962 to leave me a voicemail. It's not a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional, but I can provide you with some psychoeducation and my personal experience. So let's go right into the question, shall we?
Hi. So I'm a active military member and have been for 16 years. And one of the things that I guess I still struggle with is reconciling what it is to be a Black soldier now and over the last 16 years, and to have children who are part of the LGBTQIA plus, and what that means, being surrounded at all times by a community that both in certain facets supports and encourages, via its multitude of subcultures, but also at a much more objective level can also represent some very trying counter beliefs and counter values with historical and empirical evidence that is presented on a semi-regular basis. And so I say all of that to say that over the course of my service, I have picked up different techniques, strategies, things like that from mental health consultants, services providers, things like that. And so working through things like self-awareness, understanding self-regulation, and that self-awareness isn't enough. What are you doing with it? And then self-regulation, but finding and remembering your why. So for the purpose of deepening, maintaining connection.
Okay. So I bet you're like, okay, so what are you going to share from this episode about something that we may not have known about you? I attended a military institution for my doctoral program. I got my second master's and my doctorate from the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences in Bethesda, Maryland. And then I completed my last 2 years of training at Johns Hopkins. And I feel like I have a very unique experience when it comes to engaging with the military from a mental health perspective, from the perspective of a Black person, from someone who was a civilian amongst the ranks for years. I started that program just simply because I actually felt as though I wanted to focus on the military population as my population of interest. And then after being there for 2 years, I really, 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 really missed working in Black mental health and well-being and the intersection of that. So I transitioned back to the specialty that I should have been working on in the first place. So it is a military university. I was a civilian. They accept a couple of civilians a year. So I think there was like 2 or 3 per cohort, very rarely Black. So I was like a minority in so many different aspects. One, only 5% of licensed psychologists in the US are Black, not mental health professionals, but licensed clinical psychologists are Black. In our cohort over the past 4 or 5 years, I think there was like 1 or 2 Black people, 1 Black person per cohort. So not only was I a minority as a Black person in a doctoral program, fully funded, I might add, fully funded, but also being a civilian on a predominantly military campus. And witnessing that entire experience as it was when I was training was really, really interesting to watch the dynamics of the way people engage with each other. I will say also the dynamic of the fact that the branches used to clown each other every other day. Like the branches stay clowning each other, which is something I always appreciate. I always say my love language is insults. I love it. But just the dynamic. They made way more money than us in terms of the people who were there. As a civilian who was there on a stipend. But also the expectations, also the malleability, the flexibility, also the the box that a lot of times they will put people in. Also, the fact that every single one of my cohort mates was injured in some way, shape, or form. Everybody had back problems. It was wild. So when I heard this question, I not only thought about it as a Black person, as a Black mother, as someone who is cisgendered and heterosexual, as someone who also and was educated in a military school for 6 years. And what I hear the question as is like reconciling your identity as a Black man and the military and parenting children that are a part of the LGBTQIA and same gender loving community in the first place. And so many different aspects of that. One of the first things I thought of as a parent is the fact that it is so important to recognize that your child's identity, including their sexual orientation, is their own. And it's not a reflection of you as a parent. And when you're asking this question, I felt as though I was hearing so many different things in terms of not only what this means in terms of like you're getting all this information every single day about like masculinity, what that looks like in being in the military. But a lot of times when people ask me about things with their child's identity, it's just like, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for me? And some people can just like write that off instantly and say something like, oh, that's just a parent being selfish and how dare they? But that's just the easy route, isn't it? That's just like the low hanging fruit. And it's often not appropriate. Doesn't mean it's not appropriate sometimes, but sometimes it isn't. I also want to go at this from the aspect of military propaganda and also the parental concerns within a cultural context. Now, military propaganda that shapes perceptions of masculinity and gender roles, and even the belief that there are only two genders. I have to double check. I am like 1000% positive, but I do want to check the actual date that Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed. The policy was repealed by President Barack Obama in 2010, and the repeal became official on September 20th, 2011, allowing for open service by LGBTQ plus individuals in the U.S. military. Now, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was a United States policy that prohibited gay, lesbian, and bisexual individuals from serving openly in the military, while preventing commanders from inquiring into a service member's sexual orientation. That's what it is. Like, don't ask, don't tell. Now, please be aware that this did not mean that individuals, gay, lesbian, bisexual individuals, were not in the military. That was the don't ask, don't tell. You don't tell because they didn't ask you in the first place. Please don't mistake that, because I had colleagues that had been in the military. I started my program. I forget when I started. 2013. I started my doctoral program in 2013. Don't Ask, Don't Tell became official in 2011. And I had colleagues that were openly gay or individuals openly gay. And when I got there in 2013, they were career military. So they were in the military with West Point or the academies and have been in the military for decades. So there is that. But also just wanted to provide y'all with that little bit of education. But thinking about it in terms of that, the military, the information that's provided to you overtly and covertly, whether it's through conversation and people openly stating what masculinity should look like, or whether it's from the videos that they show you and stuff like that. And I want to say that propaganda is always a tool. It's not good or bad. It's a tool. And I would state that the propaganda provided within the military is used by the military to maintain control and conformity within the ranks in the first place. And any environment, they benefit from adhering to strict definitions of certain things. And I think within this, it's masculinity and gender roles. Having these strict definitions can lead to you to not questioning your own identity. One of the biggest things I would state in terms of remedying this is thinking about all the information that you have been given in terms of what masculinity is, and think about how much you actually agree with. There are so many things that are passed down. I always say from generation to generation, but also within the environments that you're in. And just because it was handed to you doesn't mean that you drop it. So I would encourage you to think about how you even define masculinity. Have you thought about what masculinity is? Because ultimately that's what this is, in my opinion. One, it's the aspect of the cultural context. Two is an aspect of your individual identity, but also a lot of times when it comes to Black men and children, in terms of being in the LGBTQIA plus and same gender loving community, is what it means with like what you define as masculinity. So, what do you define as masculine? Who are some individuals that you look up to that look like you, or that are or don't look like you, are men, and what have they shared about their own masculinity, whether it's through film, whether it's through media, whether it's through books, whether it's through them being in your family, and is it something that you actually agree with? Like, what do you when you think of that in terms of values? Like, what does masculinity mean to you? I really encourage you to have some aspect of self reflection in terms of what this brings out for you in terms of their orientation and why you might be troubled by their orientation in the first place. One of the biggest things that I see a lot with Black people, in particular Black men struggling with this, is the intersection of sexual orientation of your children and the fact that they're Black. The fear, justified fear and concerns of Black parents when it comes to their safety and the challenges of being Black and queer. That individual aspect, because not there's so many times where I hear people say like the world is tough, so I'm going to be tougher, especially when it comes to Black people. But I always talk about the aspect of the world is tough, so I'm going to be a safe space to land. And once again, low hanging fruit of just stating that, like, oh, you should just, this isn't about you, this is about your child, which is also true. But I do want you to think about the identity of like a Black person, a Black parent in this world who knows that their children will be adultified and dehumanized, who knows that they often have to prepare their child and provide them child with ways to adhere with rules that they don't even accept, but they know that other people abide by, and can have this inherent fear of not only are you Black, but now you're also queer. And this is also something I also understand. Like, I may not understand it. The biggest thing is like, you don't have to understand it. You know and love your child and you understand that. But there's a fear. There's like an inherent fear with rearing children. I never been so scared in my life as a parent. It teaches me more about myself than it teaches me about my children every single day. But there can be a concern for safety, and it can also be the fact that you don't understand, and because you have this confusion, it comes out in different ways. I think it's important to realize that this is still your child. I think it's important to realize that sexual orientation is not a choice. A choice. Let me tell you something. You think if sexuality was a choice, I would choose to be attracted to men. Heterosexuality is one of my most toxic traits, and there's nothing wrong with men. It's just, have you seen women? Have you seen them? Have you seen her? Tell me, have you seen? Come on. I mean, gorgeous. They smell good. I mean, the men, my husband smells good. I love my husband, love him down. But I'm just saying. And then whenever people say that, I'm like, that's right, right. When did you choose to be heterosexual, since it's a choice? What was your date? Do you make that choice every day? So there's that. There's the concern about the propaganda that's around you, which I would say like self-reflection. There's also the cultural context of it, and there's also the confusion. And like, this is something that I don't understand. They likely don't understand your heterosexuality standpoint. The number of times people are like, for real? To me, I I think it's important to really understand the underlying issues for your discomfort. And I also would state, it's typical, like this can be something that can be really difficult for you to address alone. So it may also be incredibly helpful to seek a licensed mental health professional to help you on this, to look at the underlying reasons for any discomfort or concerns. But I will also say, as someone who is a parent and very much thinks that it's such like it's crazy. Every single day I see my boys. I have two sons, unless they tell me otherwise, and it's such an honor to be their parent. Is it exhausting? Absolutely, but to watch them grow every single day. I want you to think about what you will be missing out on if you feel as though you can't resolve this. And that could be the driving point for you wanting to learn more about yourself and learning and understanding that your children will likely be understanding. energy, like I'm working through this and this has nothing to do about you. This has everything to do with me and how I'm responding to who you are. It's the same way I state that there's no such thing as race-based stress. It's racism-based stress because the issue is not my race. It's racism and what my race apparently brings out for other people. Talking to your children and be open and honest with them about you are working on yourself. There's nothing in your response to who they are. You're getting help for that. And please be patient with you while you work on that because you understand that you want to have a relationship with them. Examine the fear of rearing Black children and how it may lead to shaming or suppression of your child's identity as a means of protection. Consider the impact of military propaganda on the definition of masculinity and how it may influence your perspective. And think about the fact that you created these human beings and you have the joy of watching them and rearing them grow up. But that's not a right. You're not owed a relationship with your children. You also have to earn that. And that comes through respect and acknowledging who they are as people. I very much hope this helps. Once again, this is Dr. Raquel Martin. Thank you so much for leaving a voicemail. Guys, if anyone wants to leave voicemails on the show, call 215-650-3962. Again, that's 215-650-3962. Thank you for tuning in. Please leave a review, Apple, Spotify, all that. Remember to be kind to yourselves. 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still 1 step forward. That's just math. Have a good day, week, year, and lifetime.